Hi team, welcome back to our Introduction to European History Anchor Fact series of printables and mini lessons. This video will serve as a summary and conclusion to the series, focusing on the theme of supranationalism. We started this series talking about how most European countries have joined the European Union, which began in 1993. What most people don't know is exactly what kind of government the European Union has. You will now. It's called supranational. What is it? And how did Europe come to this point? European history begins with the fall of Rome in 476 AD. At that point, the barbarian tribes of Europe were constantly at each other's throats. It was indeed the Dark Ages. Charlemagne tried to put Europe together, creating the Frankish Union of 800 to 43. But it fell apart when his three grandsons fought each other. The separate countries of France and Germany began to evolve into the nations they would become. France was almost swallowed up by England, however, in a very weird case of two kingdoms being closely linked, until the French royal family rejected the English king as the heir to the throne and made it stick through the 100 Years' War of 1337 to 1453. The kingdoms themselves could not unite Europe, but maybe Christianity could? The Pope was the leader of all Christians in Europe, after all. But in the Reformation and Religious Wars from 1517 to 1648, the authority of the Pope was rejected by Martin Luther, then King Henry VIII of England, and John Calvin. The terrible violence of this period by Christians against Christians destroyed the idea of Christendom. Europe would become a collection of separate nations. To make matters more complicated, one of the nations that would have a growing impact on this story was Russia. Because of the Great Northern War of 1700 to 21, Russia became more closely connected to Europe and involved in Europe's wars. France added to the conflict between Europe's nations by rejecting monarchy in the French Revolution of 1789 to 99. Which led to wars in which the other European countries, including Russia, tried to stop the revolution. This backfired by bringing about the rise of Napoleon, who almost imposed French culture on everybody else for good during the Napoleonic Wars from 1799 to 1815. So much resentment towards Napoleon and France by Germans led to the creation of the German Empire, which launched World War I to try to take over Europe itself. The inability of the Germans to accept a peaceful place in Europe led to another attempt by Adolf Hitler in World War II as German culture became Nazi, in other words, National Socialist. You keep hearing those words, nation and nationalist. Europeans became convinced that nationalism is the problem. The solution they came up with is called supranationalism. Supra means over and above. The idea of the European Union is that Europeans need to stop thinking of themselves as Germans or Frenchmen or Italians and think of themselves as Europeans. This is the idea of the greater good of Europe, which must be placed above the good of the nation. They started by organizing something called the coal and steel community, in order to prevent separate nations from having the energy and the steel to build weapons separately from each other. When that worked, they expanded it over and over until in 1993 they created the European Union. What took so long? Well, Russia was controlling half of Europe. Until 1991, Europe was stuck in what is known as the Cold War between Russia and the United States. Only when communism was abandoned could the Europeans hope to build a united Europe. It's what they have today, but will it last? It's not looking good. Great Britain has already left. People in France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Austria, and elsewhere are very unhappy with the way the European Union works. They are becoming convinced that it would be better to be separate nations again. As you hear about Europe's struggles in the news, you'll know that it has to do with a great argument between nationalism and supranationalism. And you'll know the story behind it. Thank you for joining us for this Anchor Fact series on Europe. You can also check out our series on Russia, Japan, and many other topics including Sub-Saharan Africa, coming up. There isn't anything important you can't learn at Knowable World. Come see us at knowableworld.com for all your learning options. The 2025-26 school year is focused on Europe, Russia, and the world we live in. I hope to see you there.